Hello, this is a how-to film. It's a film about how I made the CI5002 introductory film, and there was some interest from different people as to how I went about doing it, how I used Camtasia, what equipment I was using, all the rest of it. So this is a bit of a how-to about that. First things first, I've shared a box folder with you which has some various things in there, like URLs I might talk about, the spoken word script that I used, but also the Camtasia zip file, which is the folder with all of the original media and the file itself, the Camtasia file that I use. So you can unzip that and have a look yourself, which hopefully will prove useful. I'm going to talk about the environment, the space, the tiny space in which I made the film, and how I went about doing the setting up of the equipment. I'm going to be looking at the timeline of the Camtasia project, all of the different elements are in that timeline. That's quite useful to know how I went about assembling it. Green screen removal, how to remove green screens and how to replace them with the relevant background. That is useful. I should also look at importing media and importing assets, which you will inevitably have to do, I'm guessing, in some way or another. We will be looking at working with PowerPoints. The way that you might be working with PowerPoints could be very different to how I was using them in the film. So I've incorporated this other PowerPoint working method into the film, because I think that will be useful. We will be looking at sound mixing and lower thirds, which are the graphics that you put on top of your film. And we should also be looking at exporting. That's enough from me. Hi, so I just wanted to show you the small scale. I don't have a big studio at home by any means. I have a red brick Victorian terrace, and the box room of that is where all of my filming for the CI5002 film, and indeed for all of the other modules coming up for this teaching block in September, will be filmed from. Very, very small. Let me show you. Let me just swap my camera around. So teeny tiny room. It's about 5 feet wide and about 10 feet long. It's just a tiny box room. Here is my pop-out green screen that fits in very snugly between my bookcase and the door and the back wall, and my vacuum cleaner tucked in there. Extraneous information. There is an exterior window. Fantastic, whoopie-doo. This is my throne, my video throne. This to the side here is the extra light that I've purchased. It's a little LED light, and if I switch that off, you'll see, without being overly exposed, that it's a very simple, almost A5 sized pad with LEDs, at the back of which, can you see it just about? There are two controllers. One is for brightness, one is for color temperature, and I can probably show you a bit of that. If I switch it on again, I can go right back down to almost nothing, or to full brightness. It's just flaring out horribly. But I can also change the color temperature, so it's gone a little bit red, reddy orange, or daylight blue, and I can go everything in between. So it depends on the color of the day outside. If it's dawn, I never film at dawn because I'm just not awake, or at dusk, when the sun is going down and everything gets a bit redder, so you have to adjust the colour of your supplementary lamp. This is a very useful little arm that bolts onto the side of this bookcase, basically, and just above my PC that's whirring away, and that supports the lamp. And the lamp provides a bit of extra lighting for me when I'm sat here, but also it puts some extra soft lighting onto the green screen. but never quite enough. So over here, I've got a little, well, this is just a little desk lamp that's clamped with a bit of white paper just to stop too much of the light from landing on me, but it just helps put a bit of extra lighting on the green screen just here, just enough to help it. And this is the next most important thing, I suppose, is my paper look webcam, which is HD. It's pretty darn good. It's not great. The more you spend, the better the controls you have over the camera. And I could still do with a much nicer camera. The top of the range Logitech would be good. But I do have an HD camcorder upstairs, which is quite small, and so I might be using that in future, so I can control the exposure a bit more carefully on the lens, so I don't appear to have a big burnt out face. And lastly, these are the headphones that I have discussed, headphones with built-in mic, and these are very good. They're manufactured by Empower, and for the price they actually produce quite a significant punch. And then my swap around, and then here I am. I'm sat here with my back to the green screen, and I've got daylight coming in from over there, and my soft light comes in from there. And when I'm not holding my telephone as a camera, the lighting works quite well. I haven't got it switched on at the moment. So there you go. That's a very quick look at the environment that I'm filming in, and I hope that kind of helps a bit. Okay, thank you. Let's talk you through how I've assembled the timeline for the film, and in doing so, hopefully that will get across some of the principles of Camtasia and how that works and how my setup has worked. As you will see from my bouncing cursor as I move across the screen, I have 6 tracks used in total, which is probably maybe slightly overzealous by 1, but I believe you need to keep a nice tidy timeline so you know where you are with your project. So don't be surprised if you get up to 6 tracks quite quickly. At the top here you will see that all of these clips are my pieces to camera, and I recorded my pieces to camera in front of my green screen, and all I was looking at the screen at the time was a Microsoft Word document, which was very, very big, and I had my script on it so I could read it quite clearly. So the backgrounds that you actually see in the finished film behind me aren't the ones that I was working to when I was filming. I was just looking at a script. The backgrounds that you see behind me in the finished film were all of these that are down here in tracks 3 for instance, and also in tracks 5, which is where I've got my various name supers. So that was the principal structure of it. Is just to refresh, go through that again with you, is that I am on the very top layer. Those are my green screen camera recordings. The green is then removed. Below that, somewhat unusually if you're from broadcast, but as you're not, don't worry. Underneath that are these files, which are the name supers or lower thirds. So it's got Adobe XD, that kind of animate. Those are on the next layer down, and on track 4 I have some other files which are also video files, but they are for some reason on track 4, not on track 3, and that's probably because they were an option that I put in later. And then on track 3 I have some backgrounds such as the PowerPoint backgrounds here. They were brought in separately and then mixed between. We can talk about that in a minute. So all of those are my PowerPoints. Then I've got some video clips that I brought into the project and are placed into the background. And again, it ends with a PowerPoint at the end. At the end, tracks 2 and tracks 1, track 2, you'll see it says at the top. And this is the name of the piece of music that is throughout the film. It is throughout the film, but it's kept very low level. I don't want it to interrupt with my voice. I just want it to provide a sense of whole to the film as a piece. So the music sits there throughout. And it's timed to finish at exactly the end. Back timing, this is called. You don't need to do that, but it's something that we do to create a professional feel to any music that's included. Below that are the original audio clips from my green screen filming of me. I have separated those from the video and put them at the bottom. That way I have more control over I have the same amount of control over the audio, but I have more control over how I understand the timeline, which otherwise can get into a real mess. So I've split the film out on top and the audio at the bottom, and I shall discuss that a bit more. Okay, that's sort of a general overview on the assembly of the film. Let's get rid of the green screen that's behind me. As you'll see on my timeline here, there is no green screen visible. It's all been keyed out and removed. And this is from a clip that's called Rec 0708 20 number 16. In other words, the date and clip number 16. And that's up here in my media bin. You'll see that we have several different, or 2 different tabs here. One is the library tab, and one is the media tab, and I've selected that clip here, and indeed I've dragged it over to here on the timeline so we can look at it in its original state. So if I pop my cursor on and just scroll through, you'll see that I'm very, very small, tiny little fill down at the bottom there. And you'll also see this enormous Word document. Well, surprise, surprise, this is a screen record that happens when you use Camtasia, and it will record both screen and the camera that's attached to the computer. So it's seeing me down here, and it's recording that, and it's also recording what was on the screen at the time, which was a Microsoft Word document with my script on. So it's actually, the background you'll see is completely static, very dull, nobody wants to see it. But it was very useful for me when I was doing the recording. So we don't actually need that background. What we can do, let's leave it there for now, actually, thinking about it. If I select on here my camera, you'll see that on the window here that my video is selected. And I could just grab this top corner and just stretch it out like that, so I get bigger in frame, and you'll see if we go backwards and forwards that we can play design. I am Philip Richardson, and I am Philip Richardson, and off he goes saying his thing, which is great, but we want to get rid of that green background, or at least try to. So if we come over here, so we've got media and we've got library, but also down here on this column we have effectively our effects that we can apply to almost anything, video or audio, in the clips down here in the timeline. Let us look for video effects. Now, if video effects, or some of them aren't present, they are there, they're just hiding. So you can select more, and there's visual effects. So let's click visual effects, and there it is. And now you'll see you have a choice of different visual effects that you can apply. I want to remove a colour. There's a chap there doing his thing. Fascinating. So I'm going to grab that, and I am going to drop that onto this video clip here. It hasn't done anything yet because I haven't told it which colour to remove. So these are properties up here. So these are video properties and audio properties. But let's just look at the video properties of this clip. And I now need to tell it to remove this green, or as much of that green as I possibly can. So if you click down on that button and select the eyedropper, you can then go over to the green, and let's pick a slightly poor version of the green, maybe somewhere from about here. and touch it, and automatically it will do a fairly reasonable job of removing most of the green. But we want to remove more because you have this horrible patch here and here that doesn't bring anything to the party. So you go into tolerance in the properties for the filter, and we can just start to slowly wind that across to the right. And you know what? Already it's produced a reasonable key or a clip. Now there are areas of my jumper here which seem to have vanished, and if we move this backwards and forwards, you'll see that I can vanish as a whole, but we don't want anything really vanishing. So I just brought it back slightly to the left. We're now at 17%, and it's not bad. If you grab the softness fader, we can start to adjust how hard it applies that clip. But we want something, as long as I'm a solid fill, which I certainly am, there we go. We want to just bring that softness back. And that will do for the, if this was going to be broadcast in television, on television, or as part of a more professional series of films, I would take the video clip off into an external software package, and I would Nuke or After Effects or Premiere, and I would make a beautiful key and then re-import these into Camtasia. But I wanted to do all of this in Camtasia, which is why I'm staying in the package, which I think is fair. So I have now keyed out the green from my video, and as you will see, I am now hovering over the background, looking magnificent. We now want to be able to import some, let's say, some video, which is what I've done for the film. Here I've used external video that I've brought in, imported into Camtasia, and I want to put that underneath me or behind me, as I have done here. How would I import footage? You can go traditional route, file, down to import, and then import media. Or you can take the wonderful shortcut, which is go down to the plus symbol here, which is at the bottom of the media tab, and you can click on that, import media, and very simply it will say, what do you want me to import, where should I find it? And I can either, let's just select this clip that I've just filmed of me. It's all about me, and I hit OK, open, and it will import that clip to the top of the bin. Here it is here. You can double click on it and get an immediate preview of it.
Hi, so I just wanted to show you the...
There I am, magnificent. So that all works, but you can also click it, hold down, and drag it into the timeline, and it will snap, as you saw there. What I mean by snap is it will lock itself to a particular place. I want to lock it to the beginning of this clip of me. Boop. There we go, locked. If we put the cursor here so you can see yourself, I've still got the Word document, but peeking in behind, I've got this little version, little excerpt of me in the background. So let's just get rid of the Word document, which is this element here on this track. I can select it and I can delete it. Oh, double fill. That's enough for anybody. Let's just scroll this along. There we go. That looks a lot better. So now there's a mini me in my office bedroom, box room in Collier's Wood. So there I am. I've now put some video behind me, and if I hit play,
I am Philip Richardson, and
one of the academic team. How
of the
confusing is that? There's me talking on camera, there's me talking in the background, and now there's me talking on top of all of that. So that's plenty of me. But it shows you how you can import video into the background of a foreground green screen recording. What about PowerPoints, I hear you ask? What about PowerPoints? I have imported PowerPoints directly into Camtasia in the same way as I import video through File Import or through the plus button. And that will import individual pages of the PowerPoint. But if you want to as I think most people will want to talk over the top of a PowerPoint whilst advancing it frame by frame, you'll need to maximize the PowerPoint inside your screen recording. So I'm recording now, as you can tell. If I go to PowerPoint here and I say, could we maximize please? So that is now behind me. Well, it will be in a second. This is now the what's being recorded as a separate video layer. It's a full frame PowerPoint output, but I'm still chatting away and talking, and I can, for instance, in this case I'm talking about location audio on CI5001, and I can step through. It was a nice little mix of the nature of sound, and I can advance again, talking about period, frequency, amplitude, bandwidth. You can imagine how the lectures go, can't you? Pitch and frequency. I'm talking and I am advancing through the PowerPoint all at the same time. So very useful. This is how I imagine a lot of my lectures and a lot of other people's lectures will be run. And on Camtasia, it's easy to do that. Here we are, and I'm showing you it, and it works. What would be good to do now is a little look at sound mixing, sound balancing, making the volume of all the different audio tracks reasonable and not too loud or too loud for the music, too loud for the voice, just right. We want to be able to hear what's being said, but we also want to produce a kind of a nice aesthetic background over which the voice can be heard. Now, you may have remembered from the film there was a little section like this which had a bit of Minecraft and then a bit of Fortnite behind it. Let's have a quick look at that again into a module objective, and helps to develop skills you can use elsewhere in your course. So I have pulled out exactly those clips and I have put them later into the timeline so that we can examine those. Let's have a bit of hay fever today. We can examine those more clearly. And let's zoom in on this, zooming in using this lovely plus minus button over here. A very good way of zooming into and out of the timeline when you want a fine adjustment of your clips in your tracks. Zoom in, and you can go all the way into there, and you can go all the way out into the whole timeline. Looks like this. But let's go zoom in so I can adjust my edit, and I can grab my scrolling bar at the bottom here. So that copy of those clips is this, elsewhere in your course. Now, if we listen to the actual volumes of those tracks, we will hear this. I can't be heard at all. All I can hear is very loud Fortnite sound effects and guns and music, and also our music that we added at this track here at the top. So these are the foreground video, background video. This layer here, this track here, that is the music from, so the music and sound effects from the Fortnite recording which I made, and then underneath that is the music that we brought in to play underneath the film, and then underneath that is the audio recording of myself on the green screen. So we need to make some kind of sense out of all of this, and one of the quickest and easiest ways to do that is once you've selected one of the audio tracks, you will notice there's this sort of pale green line that runs through it, and you'll see it more. And as I move that up and down, you'll see that the audio peaks that are indicated by little grey waveforms go up and down. That's simply the volume of the track being adjusted. So I can do a rough adjustment here, and I'm going to pop it down here, and we'll play it. So the effects of the Fortnite are much reduced. Let's just mute the track of the music, which is this track here. If we go over to the left, you'll see a little eye symbol, and we can disable that. Now we won't hear that music. We'll just hear myself and a bit of Fortnite. Skills you can use elsewhere. So maybe we can reduce Fortnite a little bit more. Let's do it with a little bit more accuracy. We can just reduce the gain over here. We can pull that down to something like 50% now. Let's listen to that. Skills you can use elsewhere. That sounds quite good to me. we still get the sound of the music from Fortnite and some of the gunshots going off and everything, but it's reduced in volume and my voice sounds a lot clearer. Let's mute Fortnite, and now let's listen to the level of this music against my voice. Way too loud. So we're going to do the similar sort of thing. Let's go roughly pull down this music level down to here. How does that sound? Skills you can use elsewhere. Still too much. I'm going to go, I've still selected the music level here. I'm going up into the properties panel, which is at the top, and I'm going to pull down the overall gain. Let's go down to 33%. And there, let's listen back to that. Skills you can use elsewhere in your course. I think my audio is actually quite low, so I'm going to put up the level of my voice. What you don't want to do is, if you look at the waveform, you will see that if it's too loud, what happens is you get these plateaus at the top of the waveform, and that's clipping. And audio that's clipped sounds dire. So you pull it down until none of those are clipped. Maybe a little bit less. There we are. Now let's listen to that. Skills you can use elsewhere in your course. It's getting to sound rather good. And now if we put the sound of Fortnite back in as well, which is on the track disable enable toggle switch here. Now let's listen to everything. So we've got the sound of Fortnite guns and bombs going off. We've got the sound of our music track, and we've got the sound of myself. Have we done a reasonable job of balancing them? Let's have a listen. Develop skills you can use elsewhere in your course. Can't hear much from Fortnite, so what I might do is just slightly raise that. I'm going to select the Fortnite track, and I'm going to bring that up to 80%, just roughly. Let's just see. Skills you can use elsewhere in your course. So I'm still aware of it. I can still hear a little bit of running around and bombs going off in the background from the Fortnite. So that is a very broad strokes approach to sound balancing. There are other little toys you can play with, one of which is fading in and fading out of audio tracks. If you go into audio effects, let's select that so we see it, so it appears in the effects panel here. I can grab a hold of fade in. I'm going to drop it onto, let's drop it onto the Fortnite music track, which is the one that's selected. Let's have a little listen and a look at what happens. So you can see two things have happened. When I drop it on, first of all, it's put this little yellow disc here, which is like a keyframe, which is a target for the original audio volume of that track. But because it's a fade in, at the beginning, it's faded it right down. But I can take this and I can slide it all the way across to here. And now it's a shorter fade in. But you can make a longer fade in or a shorter fade in. Let's just see if that works. Let's disable the audio from me. My students would love that. And also disable the music. And now let's just listen to the Fortnite. And we will hear a fade in. It was subtle, but let's just extend it a bit further. I'm just going to whack this up to, ooh, that's jolly loud. Well, let's go to 210% just to get the full effect. So we have a fade in. Fade-ins and fade-outs are used all the time in sound mixing, and it's a nice, gentle way of transitioning from one audio scenario to another. And certainly as you go between tracks, you want to sort of mix between them if you can. It's one of those niceties that makes the difference between a professional, slick-looking production and a one that is not so. Lower thirds. I use these in the film at the very beginning. You will be, if you remember quite clearly, I am Philip Richardson, and my name appears here, Philip Richardson, lecturer. These are lower thirds. They also could be called name supers. They are superimposed over the top of the background. So this is called a lower third, and Camtasia can do these for you very easily. If I scroll to the end of my timeline here, let's show an example of what I mean. Here is that very same clip. New tools will have to be learnt in this module, and I would like my name over that. Why not? So where can I get these lower thirds from? Well, they're kept in the library. Now, you might not necessarily see the library here. You want to get to it fairly quickly. My easiest way of doing it is to go to Media, and then I go over to this tab, Library. So it's slightly hidden. There are other ways of getting there, but this is just my way of getting there. It's fine. In the library, there's all sorts of different assets that you can bring in, both audio and video. But I want to bring in some lower third graphics, motion graphics. So down here, motion graphics, lower thirds. I'm going to use this one called Electric Box. Now you can preview them by double clicking, and it will play them for you in the little preview window. It lasts 10 seconds. You can make it less than that, and then it animates off. But that's what I'd like for a name super, and I'm going to take this, click on it, drag it down, and drop it over the top of that little clip. So let's watch that. New tools will have to be learnt in this module. We shall be looking at it. So it looks quite whiz, but of course it needs to be modified to include something that's relevant to me or to somebody. So let's first of all get rid of this Camtasia logo. The properties panel, once you've selected the lower third element, in the properties panel you will see the Camtasia logo in this window here. You can get rid of that and you can import a file. Let's do that straight away. I've got a transparent GIF for Adobe Animate, and I am going to import that into the clip, and straight away you see that the lower third has now got a new graphic that's there, which is the Adobe Animate icon. It still says Camtasia though, which isn't right. That's not me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the text and typography there. So if I select on the preview here and then double click, I can actually change directly that content. So I can say animate, and underneath do the same, and I can go lecturer. So now if I zoom back to the beginning and then hit play, we can see if that works. New tools will have to be learnt in this module. We shall be looking at Adobe XD, a website and mobile. You can of course change the typeface and all elements beyond that as well. I'm not going into that now because it's a bit more involved, but you can experiment and you can learn for yourself. What you'll see is when you click on that plus sign, so here's our footage of me, the background, and our audio. Here is the lower third, and when you just select it, it brings up the simple properties here, and you can change the contents here as well. You can change the size of the typeface, the weight, and the color. You can do all of that from here. You don't have to leap into changing it. But over and above that, there's this little plus sign. And if you hit the plus sign, you might have to open up your tracks a little bit. You'll notice that there's even more control over the individual tracks here. And if you hit this other plus sign, there's even more. We've got we've got about 6 or 7 individual track elements in that lower third graphic. But that's for you to explore and you to experiment with. The CI5002 film is edited. It's on my timeline. It's there of a piece from beginning right through to the end. I have to now export it. And we do that in Camtasia through share. Now the share ability, the share function, the share button is at the top right up here. Okay, this is our assembled piece. We hit share, and the top of which is local file. I select local file. It comes up with my custom production settings, which I've preset in the production in the project settings already. So I'm exporting to 1280 by 720, which is what I've always called HD light. It's not 1920 by 1080. It's a kind of a it's an improvement on standard definition. It's a 16 by 9 ratio. It is HD light. It is 1280 by 720. So that's what this project's going to be at, and it works well enough for enough clarity of visual information for people to see what's going on, but it's a little bit of a reduced file size and therefore bandwidth for handling on things like Microsoft Stream. But you could make it whatever you like. I don't mind. So we're going to stick with MP4-Smart Player. Ooh, what Smart Player? Well, Smart Player, hello, chair's falling apart. Smart Player is literally a media player that works with TechSmith, Camtasia. TechSmith are the manufacturers of Camtasia. The Smart Player provides interactivity with Camtasia projects, but only in those platforms where they accept the Smart Player as a way of delivering the film. And at the moment, it is not available in Canvas VLE. Okay, so it's a bit annoying. I'm sure it's coming. Maybe it's here already, and I just don't know. But in order to have interactivity using Smart Player for your exports, you can't do that just yet. But we can export the movie, that's no problem. So export MP4, marvelous. Let's go next. We don't want to have these controllers, so deselect that. What that means, if they were switched on, that would be enabling the Smart Player. Okay, and you'll have controllers on the screen, and it would also embed that into Smart Playing platforms. But we don't have Smart Player, so just switch that off. Everything else you can pretty much leave as is. We go through to next. You can have a look at these. There's nothing really to change for most of us at this point. And finally, we get to the point where we can name our production up here. And here we can select where we're going to record that movie to. You want to put it somewhere that's useful, somewhere where you can find it. And then you simply hit finish, and that will start your export. And that really is it. There's one other thing to talk about quickly. If you wish to save your project, not just as a project file, but save with all of the media that you've brought into the project, which is a jolly good idea. That way you can go back to the project later on if you're updating it or changing it or modifying it. Two little things. We are up here in media. Let's select that again. And if I look at the media bin and I go down somewhere around here, I can right click and I can delete unused media. So if you've got media in your bin that you are not using, by deleting it, the bin will be tidier. You'll be happier. It's jolly useful. So that's the first thing. The second thing is file, export as zip. This will export the entire project, the project file, and the associated media that goes with it. And it exports it all into one zip package that you can save, squirrel away somewhere, so that if you ever have to make changes to it, you just have to reach for that zip file, unzip it, and all of your media and the project file is there. It's really jolly useful. Phew, that is it for this film. It is very much a work in progress, all of this. I will probably be going back to this and modifying it and tweaking it as time goes on. So any comments, please leave them in the comments section in Microsoft Streams, or email me as well, and I will hopefully get a chance to refresh, revive, revamp this movie and make it more useful as time goes on. Thanks ever so much for watching. Cheerio.